many in law enforcement not so thrilled to have a progressive woman Democrat as the top law enforcement official in the state. And I'm going to be very candid with you. It's made it difficult. It's very hard when you have orders that come from the governor that law enforcement refuses to enforce, when you have orders that come from the Department of Health and Human Services that law enforcement just outright refuses to enforce. It's hard when you have county sheriffs that stand on a stage with militia members who, I don't know if you heard the Barry County Sheriff, if you recall, when he was on the stage with Mike Shirkey, the Senate Majority Leader, and militia members joking about running over the governor with the bus, the elected sheriff of his county. And then later, after the arrest of all of these white supremacy and militia members who were plotting to kidnap and to execute the governor to defend these individuals, you know, it was hard for me knowing who many of these individuals were involved in this plot as we were following it, of course, behind the scenes, and to see the support they were getting from Republican electeds and to see them intermingling together at events. So is it any wonder now? I mean, we just learned that the Republican Attorneys General Association was involved in supporting activities to get people to this event at the Capitol. And in fact, Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas, was there and with them. But is it surprising, given the fact that 18 of these attorneys general, Republican attorneys general, signed on to an effort before the United States Supreme Court to overturn the election results in the state of Michigan, as well as 3 other states? Is it surprising? That is the state, unfortunately, of law enforcement in some ways. And so when we saw what occurred on, you know, at the Capitol, you know, to think, I know you would naturally think, well, they got this. They know this is happening. They're prepared for it. They're ready for it. I have struggled. I have struggled mightily. I have had more conversations than you can imagine with the state police and with various police departments about what are we going to do to protect the Capitol. And you remember what happened there last April, of course. And I remember just being on fire and saying, how could it be that there was not a single arrest that came out of that incident, when as I'm watching it live on Twitter, on Facebook, what have you, I'm calling out the statutes that are being violated. You know, I'm like, that's a felonious assault, that's a brandishing, that's a resisting and obstructing, that's a trespassing. And as, you know, as sworn police officers are essentially just watching, I've seen that happen at outside the homes of Secretary Benson and Director Gordon and Director Washington. I have seen that happen when threats have been made to officials all over the state of Michigan and not seen action taken. And I have been exasperated because I can't understand it. I have spent a career both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, mostly in Wayne County, mostly in the city of Detroit, watching people get arrested and charged for things like crossing a road where a sidewalk was provided in a neighborhood, and seeing those people get patted down and sometimes arrested for that. And then to see the things that many of these Trump supporters have been engaged in, and to see there seemingly no legal repercussions of any kind, because apparently you are insulated from arrest and inoculated from prosecution as long as you're wearing a red MAGA hat. You're safe. If you're white and if you are a Trump supporter, then I guess whatever you do is okay. And so it has been so hard for me because I have never felt so helpless as I do as the top law enforcement official in the state of Michigan, knowing that some of these things, that they happened outside of this political sphere, If I were just to call the police and say, hey, somebody just threatened to kill me, and I was a private citizen, they would do something. But I'm the Attorney General of the state of Michigan. So when somebody threatens to kill me, law enforcement says, well, then I guess you shouldn't have that job. Why are you so mouthy on Twitter? Maybe if you weren't, all these people wouldn't be threatening to kill you. I guess it's your own fault. So that's the place we are right now. When Debbie talks about this event that is likely to occur on the 17th, I'm sure you would look to me naturally for some sense of assurance to say it's going to be fine. You know, we got this covered. Nothing will happen. Everything is planned in such a manner that nothing can possibly happen that will result in injury to property or to persons. And that's what you'd probably like me to say. You know, if I was a liar, I would tell you that. But I am nothing else if not plain spoken. And I will tell you that I have grave concerns. And, you know, will I have these conversations again with law enforcement? I will, but I want you to remember this. I have 50 special agents at my office, and that's it for a population of nearly 10 million people. So we count on the Michigan State Police. We count on the county sheriffs. We count on the municipal police, hundreds and hundreds of police departments all across the state of Michigan. But I can't make them arrest people. I can't. And I can't make them take the warrants and the write-ups of police reports that were never drafted to my office. I can prosecute cases if those are brought to my office, but I can only sit by helplessly and watch these things occur and then say, I don't understand why you're not arresting people for this. And I think what happens is this: people become emboldened when they know that you can have an AR-15 strapped to you and you can charge into the Michigan State Capitol and you can literally be hovering over state senators while they're trying to do the business of the people and be threatening them and screaming out things to them. And what you will get in response is not only do you not get arrested for that, but the Senate Majority Leader will come up to the gallery and sit down and have a chat with you and be like, good job, guys, nice work. So what kind of message does that send to people when you're literally allowed to do whatever it is you want to do and nothing happens to you? In fact, a lieutenant from the state police after the protest at Jocelyn Benson's house, under the cover of night, you know, dozens and dozens of people at that house, allegedly some of them armed, screaming and yelling, calling her a criminal, calling her a traitor, and using bullhorns, even though there were many noise ordinances that are in effect at that time in that neighborhood and in the city of Detroit, you know, on her property, violating trespassing ordinances, violating picketing ordinances where you are allowed to picket, but there are, as anything else with the First Amendment, there are time, manner, place constraints. You can't do whatever you want, whenever you want. For instance, we know that you need a permit if you're going to, you know, protest in certain areas. I mean, there are certain constraints. We want people to be able to exercise their First Amendment rights, but to do so in a way that they're not threatening people's lives, right? Is that fair for us to believe that those are fair restraints on the First Amendment? Anyway, but you know, to hear the police after that say that everything was done appropriately and this was an appropriate way to exercise the First Amendment rights, and honestly not even to show up at her house for an hour when she was calling 911 from her basement. I mean, if I were to, I wish I had a better message for everybody today, but I am deeply concerned. I am deeply concerned. I am concerned about finding out, did I already say this, that the Republican Attorneys General Association was involved in sending these people to Washington, D.C. I think I already said that. I mean, can you imagine? These are the top law enforcement officials in their states. Half the states in America have Republican AGs. And again, trying to thwart our election, and sending people to that, you know, money going to that organization utilized to bus people to that event. I'm sorry, I'm just rambling right now, but I don't know how to properly convey how disturbed I am right now when the people who are charged with being law enforcers in our state and in our country are in effect working to circumvent the law and to undermine the law. But what I will say is this: I think that for positions like Attorney General, like Secretary of State, I think before this year, maybe people didn't fully appreciate the importance of these roles. I was very proud to work together with Secretary Benson. It was not easy. There were, this was the first year, obviously, that we had no reason absentee voting, thanks to Proposition 3 in 2018 that all of you helped pass. Thank God. And we had lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit when Secretary Benson had the audacity to send out applications to people so they could actually vote without risking their lives by going to the polls during a global pandemic. But the rules kept changing because there were so many lawsuits and so many changes constantly happening. How do you vote? When do you vote? Where do you vote? I will tell you, and this is a story that I guess is yet to be written. I was at the distribution centers in Pontiac and Detroit the day before the election, pursuant to a court order. Again, I promised all of you that I would sue many folks in the Trump administration if I became Attorney General, and I kept that promise. But did I expect to have to sue the Postmaster General of the United States Postal Service? I did not. I did not see that one coming, not on my bingo card. But we did, and we won that case. We got a court order that stopped many of these changes. Unfortunately, they'd already stripped out many of the machinery that actually, the sorting machines, and so they had significantly slowed down the mail. But I was actually, myself and my Solicitor General were at those facilities pointing out ballots. There's a ballot, deliver that. There's a ballot, there's a ballot. And we were actually roaming around with a lot of US attorneys and postal police following us as we were pointing these out to people, just to make sure that those ballots were delivered. I saw not ballots, they were ballots, but they were ballots that were going from the clerk's office to the voter that had not been filled out yet, that had been sitting there postmarked 4 or 5 weeks ago that nobody had ever delivered. And each one of those represents a person who probably never got a chance to vote unless they took it upon themselves to go vote in person that day. And many people we know vote absentee because they cannot vote in person for many different reasons. So anyway, and then we fought tirelessly, Secretary Benson and I and the governor, together to fight all of these specious lawsuits that came afterwards. And I compared it to a Friday the 13th movie from the 80s, because like every time we thought we had won, every time we thought Jason was dead, boom, he popped back up. We're like, all right, we won, it's over. Finally the will of the people will be heard. And we're like, no, it's not. And then another one, and then another one. And finally, at long last, January 6th was really the last date that they could truly interfere with that process. But up until that time, and we're still battling some of these lawsuits. Fun fact, the attorney that's handling the Antrim County lawsuits, where of course Hugo Chavez has taken over apparently dominion, and from the South American grave somehow is controlling our elections in Michigan. That guy has indicated he's probably going to run for Attorney General. So that's the kind of folks that we're talking about that want to have the position that I now hold. But anyway, I could go on for a really long time, but obviously, we're not out of the woods. Sanity is coming. And I always say that every time I see Joe Biden on TV, it's the equivalent of like me popping a Xanax or something. Because my blood pressure goes down. He's so measured. I'm like, oh my God, your president can look like this. He can talk in full sentences. He can say things that reassure people instead of cause people to have, their blood pressure go up. Once he's in office, I know it's going to take a while to get, his departments and his agencies running smoothly, because God knows what shape they're in right now. But I will say this, and this will be the last thing I say. When you talk about the importance of holding these positions of AG, one of the reasons why the Republicans are so desperate to get the seats back that they lost in 2018, and their number 1 and 2 targets are Michigan and Wisconsin, is because they want to use these positions the way we so effectively use them against Trump. We filed dozens and dozens of cases against the Trump administration. We were successful in 80% of those cases, 80%, which is, I'll take that win rate. That's not so bad. So these were terrible policies that were, promulgated by the Trump administration and their agencies that never went into effect because of our lawsuits. But unfortunately, they want to use these seats to try to do the same thing to Biden. They wouldn't have the same success because he's not going to be issuing illegal orders, but they will try. They will do their best to try, and they'll forum shop to try to find some of the, 25% of the federal judiciary that is now comprised of Trump appointees. So it's more important than ever that we hold on to these seats and that, we do our best to maintain Democratic AGs all across the United States and maybe win some more in states we don't have them. But anyway, all right, that was a lot.
All right. Maybe we might have time for a couple of questions here, but I think Rick had something he wanted to say, and then I'll turn it over to Kathleen for a brief Q&A session.
So General Nessel, thank you for this great update. But I was wondering, how could we be informed by your office, say, on a weekly basis?
Well, so one of the things we started doing during my campaign last time is we started issuing weekly emails to people called it Dana's Dispatch. And there's so much going on, you can't keep up with everything, but it's just a good opportunity to see the work of our office. So it's just a weekly update. Rick has posted it in the chat. If you want to sign up for my email list and you're not already part of it, then every week we send an email, and it's basically, here are the different things, and it's just sort of headlines of work that we did that week at the AG's office. So, please sign up if you want to keep updated on the work that we're doing.
And I'm also posting in the chat your Facebook page. So if someone hasn't already gone there and liked your page, they can do so now. And those get updated on a daily basis. So if you want to keep track of all the important work that Dana's doing, please do that. And one last thing before I mute myself is I'm also going to type in my email address, which is rick@dananessel.com. So if you guys need anything from Dana on the political side, then feel free, reach out to me anytime.
Yeah, so Jennifer Austin, Midland County Dem Chair. So my question is, what can individual citizens do leading up to January 17th and in regards in general to these sorts of issues to pressure police to, follow their jobs, do what they're supposed to do in order to keep our lawmakers safe? Like, what is there to do that we can individually do? Who would we go to?
Well, so what I would urge you to do is, first of all, talk to your county sheriff. Ask your county sheriff, what is it that you plan to do to make sure that people are safe on that day? What is your plan? Ask your municipal police departments, what do you plan to do? We're aware of this situation. What information do you have that you can share publicly about what's going to happen that day? What are you going to do to keep your community safe? And I want you to remember this. First of all, every elected sheriff is an elected sheriff. That means that they are responsible to the communities, who put them into office. They're responsible to the people of their counties. So they have to answer politically to them, right? If they're not going to do anything to protect people, then they should say why. With your municipal police departments, generally speaking, of course, it is like the mayor and city council or city commission or what have you, your township commission that appoints whoever the police chief is or the director of Department of Public Safety. So, while they're not you don't directly vote for your police chief, of course, it's a political appointment. I mean, call people out and say, what are you doing to protect us from these individuals who we deem to be dangerous? Ask them that very question. Make them answer you. It's incredibly important. And make sure, for instance, you have to hold people accountable for doing their job, right? I mean, and it's not just, governors, it's not just, people who are in Congress. I mean, this is for people who also work in police departments. They work for all of us, right? Our tax dollars pay their salaries, and they ought to be accountable. So that's something I think that every citizen, every resident has a right to ask what law enforcement is doing to keep them safe. And I think it's really fair for people to publicly call out, like ask, in terms of concerns about our capital. Remember, maybe all of you don't live in Lansing, but it doesn't matter. This is the seat of state government. And so all of us, of course, pay our tax dollars to maintain the Capitol building and the Capitol grounds. This belongs to all of us. You should ask the state police. What are they doing to protect the Capitol? What are their plans that they're putting in place for the 17th? I think that's a fair question. And ask if people engaged in the following types of activities, such as we've seen, what are you prepared to do? I have to tell you, it hurts my heart. It hurts my heart when I see people in the city of Detroit, Black Lives Matter protesters who are protesting, and they break curfew, and so they get tear gassed or they get hit with rubber bullets. But then in Washington D.C. or even in Lansing, to see them, escorted out in a friendly manner, like, thanks for coming to see us. Come on back sometime. It hurts my heart, and we ought to demand that these folks are held accountable when they violate the law. And I think, to be real honest with you, I think law enforcement is scared of them. And I saw this, I will tell you, during the course of the violations of executive orders, violations of Department of Health and Human Services orders. We would get orders to shut down facilities. But of course, I can't execute those orders. And again, we have a limited number of agents around the state. So I'd have to rely on county sheriffs. I mean, I had, and also MSP, and I had times when they were like, well, the militia's out there, so we're not going to shut down that store that is operating illegally, contrary to public health orders, because there's militia members there. And that's scary. I'm like, okay, have we just ceded control of our state to the Michigan militia? But that is a real thing that happens. And I think there's going to be a real reckoning when we think about this at some point as to, and I don't want it to seem like I'm trashing all of law enforcement. There are so many good people in law enforcement that I have worked with all over the state. And so it's unfair that the takeaway be that, law enforcement is terrible all the time, because it's just not true. What I'm saying is I'm seeing too much of it. We're all seeing too much of it. And people have to be held accountable. And when I talk about equal protection under the law, that's what I ran on. You probably heard me say it 1,000 times. Equal protection under the law. That means everybody gets treated equally. And that if you violate a law, you get treated the exact same as someone else who violated the law, no matter who you support politically, and no matter what the color of your skin is. That's all we ask, right? But I'm not seeing it.
Thank you.
Yes, Dana, I think that'll have to be the last question. But we want you to know how appreciative we are that you joined us today, and that we strongly support your efforts to keep our democracy alive. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks all for your amazing work, and to your amazing Congresswoman for her efforts. Even with the jaw infection, Debbie, you can you speak as loudly and you articulate the issues as well as anybody that we have in the United States Congress, and we are so proud to have you there. And my ears perk up whenever I hear you on TV, and I stop whatever I'm doing to watch Debbie, because I know that she's going to give us the most blunt assessment possible of the situation, and the most accurate one. And she's never afraid to speak truth to power. And I am so grateful to have her there. So good luck with your surgery. But you sound great to me. Whatever's wrong, you're doing an amazing job.
The
So.
day I could attack him before Christmas, I knew my mouth was still okay.
Although I'm going to say this one last thing. There's a tiny part of me that when Trump was banned from Twitter, I was like, am I never going to have Twitter interactions with Donald Trump again? Because on one hand, you know, that's like a terrible, tragic thing when you're some, you know, random state AG from the Midwest and you have to worry about waking up on a Sunday morning to see what the president of the United States has mean tweeted about you. But is there a tiny part of me that will miss it? I don't know, maybe.
I think so.
We'll see how it goes. Anyway, thanks everybody. You guys take care.
Thank you.